Okay. Hi everyone, this is SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com, and I'm here with my last video analysis of 2017. Um, this is for a chess friend of mine, Citron Juin. Back when I first started my YouTube channel, I messaged several of my chess friends, people I know online. I asked if I could analyze a game for my channel, help me grow some content when I was first getting started. It's only been 6 months, so anyway, he finally he replied at the beginning of the month, and I figured, okay, I'll give me a weekend and I'll look at it and I'll give you some tips, give you some advice. And wow, this game is a doozy. It was tough. I looked at it off and on for pretty much the entire month, and I figured I better get it done. If I don't get it done in 2017, I won't get it done at all. So hope you find this helpful. Do note that this is a French defense game, which is probably my least favorite opening, the opening I know the least about, and it's also a closed opening, a closed structure, which is my worst type of game. And so don't take everything I say as gospel. Think of it as suggestions. All right. Feel free to ask questions, and but I'll do my best. Hopefully this will work. To get started, I just want to quickly cover closed openings or closed positions, because there's two different types of closed positions, and they require two different approaches. One example would be something like the Burgundy system, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is like this. So it's closed. We can see that the center is blockaded. And what happens, though, is that I would call this a slow closed position, or a slow closed opening. And the reason for that is that both sides are going to play on the same half of the board. We can see that white has space on the king side and in the center. And what black is going to do is he's going to blockade all of these squares. He's going to play, bishop g4, he's going to play knight h6, he's going to play e6, and he's going to try and blockade and then see if he can counterattack the center, whereas white is trying to break that blockade. So they're both playing the same half of the board, and it's really important that neither side rushes. Right? If black tries to counterattack too early, he just gives white time and space, and then white is able to blow him off the board. Conversely, if white is impatient, and then it gives black an opening to counterattack. And so both sides have to prepare very slowly, very thoroughly, and then initiate their plan at the right time. Okay? That's one type of closed position. It's slow because you're both playing on the same half of the board, and you have to take your time. Compare that to something like the King's Indian, or just let me set this up here. Right? If you look at the standard main line, something like this, right? Here we go. So that's the King's Indian, in which white is typically going to play on the queen side, over here, something like this, whereas black is going to play on the king side, over here. And black's main goal, of course, is to checkmate the white king. White's goal is to completely devastate black on the queen side before he gets mated. This is an example of a fast, closed position. The idea is, even though it is closed, and you have to maneuver your pieces around, every move is vital. If white just dillies around and does nothing, and he's like, la la la, right, or whatever white, I don't know, imagine white doing nothing, he's going to get checkmated, he's going to get blown off the board. And it's the same thing. If black were to just, he just sort of moves his king, and whatever he does, white's just going to completely eviscerate him over here on the queen side. And so even though it's closed, every tempo counts. And we need to make sure that every move increases our plan, or it pushes us forward. There's no room for slowdown here. Okay? So this is important because the nature of the closed position determines how we need to play. And we'll see that in this game. Alright, so let's get started. The game, this is actually played in the Junior France Championship 2017. Citron was white against the 1736 player. And he uses something I've never seen before. He uses this two knights variation of the French defense, in which he plays e5, and then instead of continuing right away with d4, which would of course be a main line, he plays this knight e2, so that way we can reach this position, which I think is great. All four pawns White's got a perfect pawns chain. He's able to play c3 to get it fully protected, and it's fantastic. It's great. If you compare that to a normal French defense, reach a position, something like this, we would love to be able to play c3, but our knight's there, so we can't. Here we have it. So I think that's great. I think this is something worth exploring. I really like this. Anyway, so the position, if we keep going, we have some standard French defense moves so far. Bishop d3, g6, and we play h4. And I love this. Is perfect, because already we can sense the flavor of this type of position. It is closed. The center is closed. However, we can see that black is already starting. He's got his pawns launching here at the queen side. His pieces are also more generally on or aiming at the queen side, whereas our pieces are on the king side, and our bishops in particular are aiming at the king side. So we should be playing on the king side. And so I think your next move, h4, is absolutely perfect, but the idea of coming in with h5. This is the right idea. This is the right approach to this position. Black, he then plays b4. Which might be premature, doesn't matter. But then you played this. You played knight h3. And I remember even when I first, looked at this game, what was that, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? I was looking at every move quite quickly, no more than 10 seconds. And this move jumped out as, it can't be right. And, well, again, let's just think about this position here. What's the idea of knight h3? The idea would be to bring the knight to g5, I imagine. That's the whole point. The thing is, if we look at this knight here, and then, well, actually, we don't need to put this knight in g5, because this knight can go there in one square, or in one move, right? Why are we going to spend 2 moves to bring this knight there? This knight's already on a very good square. In fact, if we look at this knight, it actually has 3 potential sacrificial ideas, right? It could take on d5, where if black recaptures, we have the potential e6 idea to come in. That's very possible if black's king stays in the center. We could also take on e6. In fact, that happens later in the game. Or it could happen. White has some interesting knight takes e6 ideas. And then also, there are knight takes g6 ideas, which would be very powerful with h5. If we imagine h5 and then takes, it's actually, actually, h5 would just be a really strong move. We'll get to that in a second. In fact, this is what I think you should have done. h5. And the reason for this is that, look, this rook is eyeing each other. And so if black does nothing, we're simply going to take. The pawn is pinned. He's forced to take this. Well, we just crush on in again, and we win the game. So black can't do nothing. If he takes, like he takes in the game, we take with the knight. And now look at all this space. Look at all the lines we have on the queen side. The rook is also opened up. We're going to jump in, and we're doing absolutely fantastic here. And black's attack hasn't even started yet, right? He's got 1 pawn coming. That's it. We're coming in. We're coming in fast. And so the only thing we would have to worry about, so to speak, is black playing g5. But this is the exact move that we'd want black to play. Because what we would do is we'd move our knight back. That's fine. Let's say he takes in the center. He has to play h6. That's the whole point of him playing g5. He tries to close it up. But that's okay, because we do this. Now look at our plan. We have this knight here. It's going to launch itself on g4. We're going to castle, and then we can play f4. And we've got a pawn break. And we're just going to smash this right open. Because if we get open lines on the king side, our pieces are just going to spring right to life. And I think black's going to have a very difficult defensive try over here. He can't castle on the king side. He doesn't want to castle to the queen side. And if he stays in the center, well, the open f-file is going to decide things. And I think you've got a dream position here. Absolutely fantastic. I think this is the way to go. The computer suggests another possibility at this point. So black could just play b4, and that would be the idea a takes b4. And the idea is black can't take with the b pawn, because then our center is just incredibly strong. We continue, we play h5, and what's black going to do? Let's say he takes. Well, now the d pawn is always strong, and if he ever tries to attack this pawn, we just play bishop to d2. The pawn is always protected. Black can't increase the pressure. Black has no plan. Black can't do anything. We're going to crush him, right? Or at the very least, white has a very active plan. Black is in huge trouble. Those are the possibilities here. And so, there's a second thing, is we have to realize is that after c takes d4, with the idea that if we take with the pawn, then this is hanging. The computer points out the wonderful move, bishop to b5, using the pin on the pawn with the rook, and then after the following variation is, again, white has positional domination here, is that these queenside pawns are very difficult to attack for black. This knight is amazing. This knight is amazing. We're going to be attacking on the king side, so h5 is still coming. We have one weakness. Notice that first he's going to have to move his bishop, right? And so then what we're going to do is we're going to move the knight to d3, we're going to play f4 or queen e2, the pawn's protected, we attack the king side, and we're going to win the game. White has a plan, and black is struggling. Okay? And these are possibilities. But what I do want to notice is how fast these are, so to speak. Is that it's focusing on preparing the kingside attack, right? If we look at the one variation after g5, right, is that that's fine. Is that we move the knight, so a knight's going to come in, f4, f5, the attack's coming, black has nothing, right? Or in the computer's variation, where it suggests a takes b4, right? And then, whoops, where is it? Where is it? Ah, here it is. This variation, where we exchange off the bishop, the knight comes in, the knight d3, we're going to have f4, which also helps with the attack. Everything is coming fast, because that's the nature of this position. When we play knight h3, that's simply two tempi in which we're not doing anything. And actually, look at that. Compare that with the game now. Okay, I'm sorry for harping on this, and again, I'm not trying to criticize, but I really want to point this out, is that in all the variations I showed, white was dictating what black had to do. Look what happens here. Black exchanges, white takes, black attacks, white attacks, black keeps going. So for the last, 3-4 moves, okay, black was able to focus on his plan, improve his position. All right? Whereas white had to react, okay? Again, this is a fast, closed position. We don't want to react, we want to act. Your next move, then, is h5. And it feels wrong to criticize this move now after just saying you should have played it, 3 moves ago? And I don't think this is a wrong move, but this is a very double-edged move. Because what happens now after h5 is that both kings are in the center. And they stay in the center. And kind of the nature of what happens here is that black's pawns, they restrict his pieces, but they protect his king. It's much harder for us to get at his king than it is for black to get at our king, right? Now, our advanced pawns, yes, they give our pieces more room to move, especially right now. However, if black can get his pieces inside those pawns, so he's ever able to do something like this, or you can imagine like these pawns exchange, his queen comes in, or his bishop, whatever, something like this, right? Our king can be in huge trouble. And so, and part of this is me, I'm kind of a safety first guy, right? I study, Karpov's games, Petrosian's games, is that I like the idea of castle here. And the idea is, if black were to continue the way he does in the game, where he goes like this, take, let's say we play bishop h6, take. We look at this position, and here's what I see. And The computer mostly agrees with me. You gotta be careful, just for the record. Computers, as great as they are still kind of iffy on closed positions. That is, on most regular games, you can just plug in the computer, tell you what it says. You know, if it's +1 for white, you know white's doing well. In closed positions, you gotta be a bit more iffy. But what I see here is that black can't castle, black is stuck in the center, we have castle. We can keep attacking on the king side. Actually, we've got space on the queen side now. We can even just bring our rooks over, or something like this, right? We could put rooks on the queen side. And if black can't castle, he's playing about this rook. And so we could even slow down a little bit here. We'd exchange all the minor pieces. Maybe keep the bishops on, and just go queens and rooks, invade over here, this rook stuck over there. I think we're okay. I think we're more than okay. And the game would become a lot less stressful, if you will. You had a note in which I'll get to that later when we get to the point. But this is a very different approach or style of playing, if you will. Okay? And this is something that I would prefer, I think. When you play h5, right, it's really indicating, and we'll see that as what happens in the game. Bishop a6, we move the knight in, take, 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 and then the rook comes in. Notice this is another disadvantage of now the knight's not on f4. We're forced to recapture with the rook, and now our king definitely can't castle. And so what we have to do now is we have to be very careful. We have to conduct our attack, always making sure that black doesn't have that counterattack coming. So, h6. And then, let's see here. What's the most important part about this position? It's about speed. It's about going fast, right? It's actually hard because we have some open lines. However, notice how these knights are essentially duplicating each other. This knight wants to come to g5. There's already a knight there. And this knight doesn't have any other good squares to go to. So the best we can hope for is some type of sacrifice and then bring the knight there. But that's it. And so what that means is you're attacking without a piece. Really, is that this knight isn't in the attack. And that's what makes the rest of this game really, really hard, I think, is that you're trying to look for moves, you're trying to look for attacks, you're trying to look for tactics. And I agree 100%. And the reason it's not working is because this piece isn't in the game. All right, so I want to stress that. That said, the move that I look at here is I want to play a4. Now, I know I was busy talking about we want to be fast, right? And now we're playing a move on the other side of the board. But the reason this works, or the reason it might work, is that if we can play b3, the queen side is now closed. Black has no play over here. And if black can't do anything, then we can take our time and we'll simply win on the king side. And so that means black would be forced to play this move. And now this pawn is weak, and maybe we can round that up. The computer gives the following variation. It plays king f1, queen a6, take, take, rook c1, with the idea of rook c3. Now, is king f1 or queen a6 the best moves? I don't know. But if we look at this, we can see how the position has changed somewhat. Is that we're going to play, we're now focusing on winning this pawn, right? And in a perfect world, we're going to win one of these pawns. We're probably going to lose one of our pawns. All right, I'm not going to lie. I mean, just by the nature of it, the way these pawns are. However, if we can win one of them, right? So that if we can win this one and this one while only losing the other one, right? We were stuck with a B pawn or an A pawn. We have real winning chances here. So that's a possibility. We ended up playing rook c1, which is really, as we see in the game, it's kind of a waste of time. And it's a shame because normally this would be a perfect move. right? We move the rook over. It's on an open file. It's developing our last piece. Everything should be happy. And yet, it doesn't work. And it actually just wastes time. And it's a shame. And I'm trying to find a better move. I load this up on the computer, and it doesn't suggest anything better than a4 either. And I think what that really suggests, and what that really hammers home, is that the little bit of waste of time that we did moving this knight 2 times, and the fact that these knights are duplicating each other, and that our king is stuck in the center so it can never be fully safe, we can't fully commit with our plan. And that's the problem with this position, right? That's just, and then that's it. We have to deal with it the best we can. And the computer said the position is dead equal. And if white doesn't play, the top 2 or 3 best moves, black is starting to get better. So that's tough. That's tough. Anyway, let's keep going. Rook c1. He plays a4. Now you played knight h7, and in his notes, Citron wrote that knight takes e6 would have been an excellent move. And let's just look at this. F takes e6, queen g6, moves over, so we take. Let's say he takes, rook a6, queen takes d5. And let's look at this position. So white has 3 pawns for a piece. Black is pretty crappy. We've got pressure everywhere. Yeah, this is great. The computer, being a computer, says that black can defend, but you know what? In a practical game, this is the way to go. This is 100% correct, right? Even if you can't calculate beyond this. And in fact, we kind of know this, because A, you're picking up 3 pawns, and you're still being very, very active. All your pieces spring to life, and black is forced to defend. That is great. This is absolutely excellent. And this is the main idea we need to be thinking about. I haven't really mentioned this, but part of closed positions is the most important thing is opening lines. And you either do it with a pawn break, or we do it with a piece sacrifice. That's the way it is. The other possibility would be f4, f5. We have to move the knight first, and that's going to take time. So the first choice is knight takes e6. And even if you can't calculate this, it's probably the right way to go. And in fact, it is the right way to go. And again, the computer says it can draw, the computer says the position is equal. It gives you the winning chances. Instead, we play knight h7. So what's the idea behind knight h7? The idea, the best I can figure, is that we want to win this pawn. So we're blocking the rook from attacking the pawn, right? Sorry, from defending the pawn, so that way we can gang up on it, we can attack it, maybe we can invade afterwards onto the second rank. That's the idea behind this move. It's not a bad move, right? It's one of the ideas. Black continued knight a5. And then you wrote, you have 2 options. You can either take on h6, or you can defend with knight to d2. You played knight to d2, which to me, okay, is simply incorrect. For 2 reasons. For one, it's inconsistent. Why'd you play knight h7 if not to take this pawn? Take it! Boom! It's yours! And then also, for the reason I've been mentioning, is that this is a fast, closed position. We don't want to make moves on this half of the board, on the defensive side, unless we absolutely have to. Do we have to play knight d2? Is knight b3, like, yeah, that's a good knight, but what's the knight actually attacking there, besides our rook? Okay, the pawn's well defended. It can't go anywhere else. We can always play knight d2 later to exchange it. The rook can even just go to c2 and it's fine, right? We're okay. When you played knight to d2, again, that's a tempi that you're not using for your attack, that you're not pressing forward. That's giving black more time. B takes a3, B takes a3, and now black does an unfortunate tactic. He plays bishop takes a3, with the idea that queen takes a3, rook takes h7. And you said that your notes that you calculated queen takes a3, but you did not see bishop g5, which is a fantastic move. I agree. You're threatening checkmate, and if he takes, you win the rook. And that's it. But just back up for a second. I just want to show you, if you looked at this position, I asked you, find a good move for white. Okay, bishop g5 is the best move, but there are other good moves here. Are there not? Yeah, look, this pawn is simply hanging. This pawn is hanging. Even something like this, okay, black's going to take that. We can take here as well, or we can play f4 first. We're going to win a pawn in this position. Queen takes a4 is the simplest. So even if you didn't find bishop g5, which wins the game instantly, you could have played here, you could have just played queen takes a4, right? Which is still, well, am I winning? So much better for you. You're up a pawn. Excellent. This pawn is hanging. We defend this pawn. Maybe we play knight f3 or whatever. Put the knight back so we undo our mistake. Then we take on the h-pawn, and you're coming in. This knight can't move because it's pinned. You're doing great in this position. What happened, I think, after bishop takes a3 is one of those examples of trusting your opponent. When you simply played rook a1. This is so common. I fall into this trap myself so often, is my opponent will do something that's slightly unexpected, right? If we back up, in this position, we don't expect bishop takes a3. And we say, why? And then we realize, aha, it's a distraction. And then we ended up trusting our opponent just a little bit. And we go along with their designs. Where if we just go, look, literally one move ahead. He plays rook takes h7, queen takes a4. Oh, his pawns are actually hanging. It's like, oh, my position's actually really good here. It's like, oh, no, bishop takes h3 was actually a little bit too clever, right? We went along with our opponent, rook a1. And now things become a little bit, well, it's okay, let's just keep going. So he moves back, we take, all right. Rook takes, so we finally take that pawn, rook g8. So if we look here, if we just sort of recap, what's actually happened is that in the end, we are up a pawn. So we won that pawn, yay. But we can see the position is a bit more different now, or it's a lot different. This bishop, instead of being passive on e7, is here pinning on b4. This knight wants to come to c4 or b3, his rook's open. In fact, every black piece is active. And very few of white's pieces are. And the game starts turning here. And I'm not going to lie, some of the tactics in the resulting position, the computer still says the position is fine, which is great if you're a computer. But I'm looking at this, and it's just, it's ridiculous, right? You played knight g5, which is, it's even hard to think of a good candidate move here, right? One line, right, the computer mentions, is you take the rook. So that way, we can then play queen a6, attacking his rook. So then he defends, and then we reach this type of position, in which we've returned our pawn for an equal endgame. But to get to that equal endgame, right, we're sacrificing exchange. Then we're moving the queen around, and then we give up a bishop. Wow, and that's one of the easier lines in this position. Like you made me work, Citron. Holy cow! And then the problem here is that black by not taking this bishop, is that we allow the following: rook c1. And after the king moves, rook comes to c3. And the problem is that if our queen moves anywhere off of, it moves wherever, then black is going to play queen b4, forking the rook and the king. And so what we have to do is that we can't move the queen. And again, the computer gives a following amazing variation. Knight takes e6, in which, okay, we give up the queen. But then we've got knight g7 discovered check. we win the queen right back. And then after the following series of moves, it turns out that we're down a piece for a pawn, but it's a knight, it's on the edge of the board, and honestly, if I look at this position, one, I don't even know, I couldn't calculate. I could not calculate that from here. There's a certain point in which there's no shame in when you can't calculate everything. Again, I've looked at this game offline without pressure for weeks. Okay, 30 minutes here, 20 minutes there, for weeks, and the computer is still pointing out new things to me. Not being able to calculate some of this stuff is okay, right? You have to accept that at points, right? Even grandmasters would struggle with some of this. But then even here, the computer says black is winning. I think there is 2,000 rated players that couldn't win this as black. I don't know if I could win this as black. It's tough. If all white needs to do is exchange these pawns for these pawns. I mean, all white needs to do. This is tough. In tournament condition, I don't know. That's tough. Let's keep going. Queen h7, rook f8, and then here, one sec. I just need to pause the recording to make sure everything is in 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So, in this position, all right. So you mentioned here in your notes that you got time pressure. You only have a couple minutes left on the clock. This is a tough game. There's been so many variations. And then you play knight takes f7, which is the losing move, sort of. Well, it's losing in the fact that, well, first, okay. So the idea that you played rook f7, queen g8, and you said that you missed bishop f8. This is the move that costs the game. And then we played queen g4, which is the second losing move. You're trying to attack e6. That was your whole idea, I imagine, right? You played because you assume this had to be the move, and then you're able to come in over here. Something like this, hitting the queen, and you're hitting that. Which is the right idea. And again, you have so little time on the clock. I can see how getting, perhaps not coerced, but falling in love with a variation like this, or a possibility, really, really works. The thing is that instead of rook takes f7, black can continue with his own attack. Knight takes e3, and we're in trouble here. This is the real refutation of the sacrifice. You just pop in the computer. I'm sure you can see it yourself. It's where black ignores our threat, because in fact we don't have a threat in this position anymore, which is unfortunate. It's deteriorated that much. The idea is if we take, black takes here, and we can't take it, because if we do, we get checkmated. That's never fun. And if we don't take, there's not a heck of a lot we can do. Notice how our queen does defend this pawn, so there's no rook takes e6 check. I thought maybe knight d6 might work, but after king d8, what do you do? And the same problem is always here, is this is always going to be check or checkmate. And that's it. And so when your opponent plays rook takes f7, it gets you back into the game. Queen f8. And then here, as we saw, that knight takes e3 was such a threat, right? It's what caused the last two variations, last two losing variations. This is why, instead of queen g4, as you rightly point out in your notes, knight takes c4 is the correct move. At the same time, this is one of those positions in which I'm looking at it with the benefit of a computer assisting me, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, of course. Again, during a game, finding these saving moves, it's tough. It's really tough. And we're able to now defend the back rank, and this is the computer line, and it says this position is completely equal, I guess. I mean, look, it's absolutely wild. We got rooks hanging, we got pawns coming in, we got perpetual check coming, queens coming in. This is tough. This is really friggin' tough. And after queen g4, bishop takes h6, And the resulting position is that we're down material and black is too active. And you stall around fairly well. That was nice. But then black finishes the game off that way. There's not much I can really say after at that point. It was just the position was a little bit too far gone. And so, if I were to back up, the main mistakes, if you will, right, isn't so much, I don't like picking on people for calculation and blunders and in that sort of sense. Because A, this is tough. This is one of the, like, I've analyzed Grandmaster games, which didn't have this level of tactics. I feel like I've analyzed some that have had more, right? But trying to dig in this by myself, this is tough. This is really freaking tough. And again, there's no shame in losing in complicated positions. There isn't, right? You miss a tactic in a crazy position where it's hard to evaluate. That's fine. But what we can fix are some of the things earlier, right? And some of that is simply understanding the nature of this position, in which here, this is the big one, is where we played knight h3. We're moving a piece that's already moved, what, 18 times at this point? All right, it goes from here to here to here. It moves all the way around to finally land up on g5, where it's not really the best, right? Where it's not doing as much as it could. And we could have just played h5 right away. We could have understood the nature of the position, pressing forward that way, right? Not wasting time on the other side, if we can help it. I think that is the real where we can improve. Because up till here, at this point, you have the better position. Afterwards, we look, here, it's unclear. And the game remains unclear. And it's a murky minefield. It is. And that's tough. It's tough. And then that leads to the final question or point, is where you mentioned how you had, nervous energy, the nervous pressure, how the psychology of playing in such games is so tough, especially when you have only a few minutes left, and in which I think you even said that you're almost shivering, right? I can relate to this exactly. For those who don't know, I used to be a competitive martial artist. I would go to local tournaments, regional tournaments. I eventually did very well. From blue belt to just before black belt during these little tournaments, I didn't lose a sparring match. So this is what? This is like the equivalent of like rep leagues or something. So this isn't like UFC or anything, but it was there. And the thing is, when I first started, I was terrible. Here, this is actually a picture of me. I don't know how old I was. Was I 14, give or take? I did not win the big trophy there. You see those trophies or those medals on my neck? Those are participation medals, basically, because I got like finalist, and fourth place or something. So I didn't do very well. The thing is I went to tournaments roughly every 2 months, and I would train for them. And so I would spend a month and a half training diligently. Then I go to a tournament. You sort of reset, month and a half, and I just kept going, and then I started cleaning up. Now, that first tournament, was I a nervous wreck? You better believe it. The first time I went to a big tournament, once I got a little bit better, was I a nervous wreck? Yes. But after I went to, 20, 30 tournaments, I was okay. And now I'm a black. This is a picture. This is me when I look like Jesus a little bit. Yeah, there I am. And we did a demonstration in front of approximately 800 people. And right before that, I was making some jokes, laughing around, and there was one other person, someone who just went to black belt, turned to me and said, "Don't you ever get nervous?" Because here I was just making light of the fact, despite the fact we're going on stage in front of 800 people, spotlights on us, if we mess up, everyone's going to laugh. That sort of thing, right? There's major pressure. However, I had done it so much at that point that it didn't bother me. Do I get nervous? Yeah, I get nervous about a lot of things. But you know what? Something I practiced literally dozens and dozens of times, maybe even hundreds of times, it's nothing, right? And then there's also a second thing, is what if I do mess up on stage and 800 people laugh at me? It's not that bad, really. right? It's the same thing with chess. What happens if I make a move and I hang a queen? Right? Or I hang a rook. I just put a video up where I lost a rook. You know, I feel stupid for about a minute, like holy crap, and then let's get rid of that. I no longer look like Jesus. Then so what, right? A lot of the pressure that we put ourselves here, when you play knight takes f7, is I think you're putting pressure on yourself to win the game. You have to win, but that's not really that's not necessarily our goal. Igor Smirnov, Grandmaster Smirnov, I love his work. Well, most of his work. And one of the things that he's mentioned, I believe it was in his book, Champion Psychology, is that our goal isn't necessarily to win or lose a game. Our goal is to play good moves. That's it. Doesn't have to be the best moves. Doesn't have to be great moves. Just consistently play good moves. Because if I consistently, or you consistently play good moves, you will get consistent results and you will consistently win, right? Like, that's the way it is. And so if you look in this position, you think, how do I win? How do I prove it? And you put that pressure on, yeah, that's when you can fall. If you instead ask yourself, what is a good move? Just give me a good move. Like, it's still going to be tough. It's still going to be hard. But you've got less pressure, right? It's okay to lose, right? Sometimes our opponents will play great moves, and we lose. But if we consistently play good moves, and that's our focus, we will get consistent results. I mean, maybe that's not the condolences you want to hear after you lose a game, but it's helped. And since I learned that, since I recognized that, my nervousness has really gone away when I play chess, right? I haven't played a lot of tournament chess. Very little, in fact. Very little serious chess. But I feel better when I think that way. It's not my job to win. It's to find good moves. If my opponent if my opponent finds better moves, good for him. Pat him on the back. And if he doesn't, well, I guess I'll enjoy the victory. So that's that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. I hope you find that at least somewhat helpful, Citron. I know this went on for quite a bit, and there's a lot more. I don't want to go through every single tactic. I get you got a computer. You can look through all those yourself. I think it's the ideas that can help, that I can help with the most. So that's that. If you have questions, comments, please leave them below, and I'll try and get at them. Feeling a bit more refreshed with chess. I'm going to try and see if I can hit it a bit hard in the new year. And I'll be studying, hopefully make some more videos. That'd be some fun. That's that. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for listening. This is SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. Bye for now.